風邪のウイルスが荒らした後の鼻水を止め、喉の腫れ、痛み、熱といった具合に風邪の症状をラインで治療してくれる、こういう風邪薬ができました。コルゲンエアライン。
世界柔道選手権。
37年ぶりに日本で開催される世界選手権では、日本選手団一丸となって金メダルを目指して頑張りますので、皆さんのご支援よろしくお願いします。応援してください。
日本で生まれた柔道が世界の共通語柔道になってこの秋日本に帰ってくる。世界柔道選手権9月28日から。
法隆寺国宝金堂正陵院の内陣と四季しかり門金が特別公開されます。拝観ご希望の方はご覧のところへお問い合わせください。
映画誕生100年、今夜はアイルランド編です。アメリカ映画の顔ジョン・ウェインのふるさとはアイルランドです。西部劇の巨匠ジョン・フォードもアイルランドの出身です。
I'll be going on home now. I'll have the supper ready for you.
アイルランド人はこの笑顔とフロンティアスピリットで新しい世界を目指したのです。優秀な人材を他国に取られる苦しみと若手が台頭してきた明るい状況をドキュメンタリストドナルド・テイラー・ブラックが描き出します。
はい、皆さんこんばんは。淀川でございます。今夜はアイルランドのドキュメンタリーですね。さあ、アイルランド言いますと僕は個人的にとっても好きなんですね。アイルランド、私はアイルランドの人とニューヨークで会った場合でも、ニューヨークの人と会った場合は帰りにバイバイグッバイこれで終わりますけど、アイルランドの人は違うんですね。アイリッシュの人、グッドバイマイフレンドというんですね。グッドバイマイフレンドが嬉しいんですね。そういう国です。だから私は少年の頃からアイルランドは非常に平気でした。というのはハリウッドの初期はアイルランドで移民がと来てたんです。スターも監督もアイリッシュが多かった。だから映画自身も丘を越えてオーバーザヒル、その他いかにもお母さんに孝行、兄弟の家族、ハートウォーミングの映画が多かったんですね。そういう国の映画が好きだったんで、私は Going My Way 我が道を行くだとかああいうのみんな好きだったんです。だから今日はアイルランドのドキュメンタリーので勇んで見に来たんですね。ところが違うんだね。驚いたね。アイルランドの人のこの言ってること解説してる人のことがちょっと違うんだね。アイルランドを映画にした作品がたくさんございます。例えばジョン・フォードの静かな男、あれだってやりすぎですね。驚いたね。まさかそんなこと言うと思わないのに、アイルランドを紹介するハリウッドの映画みんなアイルランドを大げさに紹介するんですね。あんなことないですよ。そういう言い方するのでびっくり仰天したんですよ。アイリッシュの人たちがアイルランドの映画をいいでしょういいでしょうって褒めるとか思ったら、いろいろとそういう文句を言いながら映画にしてる収録してるところがいかにも面白くて、アトランダも自由自在にこのドキュメンタリーは撮ってるんですね。そしてアイルランドがいかに辛いか、政府の力が足りないのでいい映画が作れない、しかも立派になってきたらみんなハリウッドで撮られてしまう、アイルランドは貧乏くじばっかり引いてるなんて言い方するんですね。へえと思いましたけれども、アイルランドの映画パッパッパッパッと出てくる一番面白いのはジョン・フォードの「ライジング・ザ・ムーン」月の出の脱走、あれが出てくるんですね。皆さんご覧になりましたか。いい映画でしたよ。ジョン・フォードの月の出の脱走、アイリッシュのちょうど独立運動の頃ですね。オミニバスです。それの説明解説各国の説明がタイロン・パワーなんですね。タイロン・パワーがやる。タイロン・パワーはアイルランドの代表的な人物なんですね。スターなんですね。アイリッシュのこの映画は私にとっても面白い思い出を蘇らせてくれました。本当にこのアイルランドのこのドキュメンタリー、私のずっと家で置いて何回も見たようなドキュメンタリーでしたよ。
Switches to project them. I'll switch them all on. that real? She couldn't be.
Ah, nonsense, man. It's only a mirage brought on by your terrible thirst. Come up, Napoleon.
Excuse me.
Laura! Where dear?
Oh, please, could you just...
Do you recognize the language, Mabel?
I recognize the word dear, which would indicate a Romance language, and a people who recognize some kind of God, but whether they've yet been converted to Christianity remains to be seen.
Judging by him, they have been.
Whatever they are, I'm afraid they're not Church of England.
映画誕生100年を迎えてアイルランドでもたくさんの映画が制作されています。これは異例のことです。アイルランドの映画の歴史はヨーロッパのどの国よりも険しいものだったと言えます。アイルランドでは外国の監督の方が多くの作品を撮っているのです。アイルランドの監督が国際的な舞台で評価を得出したのはつい最近のことなのです。
And the Oscar goes to Neil Jordan for The Crying Game.
Thank you. Thank you.
There seems to be periods of time in which the focus of energy gathers around a particular country, like Italy in the 40s or France in the 50s and early 60s, and then new German cinema. There are these periods of time where suddenly a lot seems to be happening.
I think the attraction of people to Irish movies is a bit like the attraction of people to South American fiction. You know, they see very strong, kind of direct, raw narrative, powerful narrative coming out of a country which has, has many aspects to it. It's not only it's half a contemporary culture. It's half part of the cosmopolitan world, and it's half rather bruised and rather unknowable at the same time.
An Irish cinema has threatened to come into existence virtually in every decade since the foundation of the state. In each case, just as it's about to get up on its feet, it's prevented from doing so and is deliberately handicapped. Now, for the first time, I think we are at a point where maybe it will gain continuity and could grow into the art form which it was always capable of.
Okay, you can go in now.
Can we go in?
No, wait your turn. And you still hanging around.
My first memory is an aunt taking me to see in old Chicago. I really must have been, when I think about it, I must have been about 3 or 4. But I remember it. I remember the images of it. It was a Chicago fire, and that I was really very, very young.
Gunga Din, the Ealing comedies. Humphrey Bogart in the Green Cinema. I saw all of Bogart's films in the Green Cinema for 4p a time. That was 6p total, pennybus down, 4p in, pennybus back.
Then the usual was, the gangster pictures. I was a big Western buff, loved the cowboys.
My father, for various reasons, thought movies were rather decadent, things that were not of our culture, you know, so I was allowed to see a film once every 2 weeks, basically. So I saw very few. The ones I saw I had to see kind of clandestinely.
I remember at one stage when I was in primary school, just about old enough to go into town on my own, where I would go in with friends of mine and we'd sit in the Grafton cinema and we'd go not even knowing what was on. And we'd sit and we'd watch absolute trash, but it didn't matter so long as it was film. So I was hooked, you know, from a very young age.
The first regular cinema was the Volta. That was the one I was in. But there had been pictures here. In the Rotunda, there were seasonal pictures by James T. Jamison and Son. They were a relation of the Whiskey Man. Oh. But they used to have a seasonal show on in the Rotunda. But ours now was ours was the first regular cinema, and Joyce was the one who brought over these Italian.
James Joyce.
James Joyce, the kid himself. He's the one. But no, I didn't know who he was at the time. Didn't know that he was a literary man of any description.
1895年パリでリュミエール兄弟によって初めて映画が公開されてから、アイルランドの人々も動くシネマトグラフの世界に驚きを感じていました。他の国同様、フランスの記録映画を公開したり、この国で初めてのイメージフィルムを撮ったりしました。これは首都ダブリンのオコネル通りを撮った最も古い映像です。アイルランドで映画制作が始まったのは1910年ですが、この努力も外国人の手によるものでした。アイルランド系のシドニー・オルコットはヘイレムカンパニーの監督兼俳優でした。彼はヨーロッパとアメリカで制作する初めてのフィクション映画を作るためにアメリカからやってきたのです。当然のように彼はアイルランド移民を映画の題材に選びました。ニューヨークで一旗あげた若者がアイルランドに戻り、恋人を借金から救うという物語です。コリーン・ボーンをはじめ多くのケイレムフィルムの作品はアイルランドのケリー州で撮影されました。観光地キラーニーの湖などでロケーションが行われています。これはアメリカのアイルランド人に人気があったのです。
Hello. My name is Tyrone Power. I'm an actor and, praise God, of Irish descent. My family having come from Kilmacthomas in the county of Waterford. Well, some time ago, a group of friends of mine decided, for the first time, to make a major picture entirely in Ireland. Of course, I had to be one of that group. Now, as you know, Ireland is a quiet little island of about 4 million population, although there are tens of millions of people of Irish descent, like myself, scattered all over the world. So we made this little picture entirely in natural settings.
この映画は月の出の脱走で、監督はアイルランド系アメリカ人の中では最も多くの作品を生み出したジョン・フォードです。1910年代から60年代までに彼が撮ったアイルランドの話のうち、アイルランドロケは3本だけでした。
You'll not put that goat in the goods van, Paddy Morrissey. That I'm telling you. There wouldn't be one egg left or a bit of produce.
その5年前に静かなる男をこの地で撮影しています。月の出の脱走同様、この映画も遊び心と深刻さが入り混じったフォード独特の作品です。月の出の脱走のこのシーンでは、実にくだらない理由で列車の出発が再三延ばされます。
I say, you can't put that animal in there. Now, this is your wedding day. Charles! But this is preposterous. I shall sue the railway company. Your wedding day a day as lovely as the song of the lark. Step this way, madam. Pay no attention to the smell of the paint. You'll get used to it in no time. Spectre, is this a first-class carriage? Well, if you want it first class, you must have it first class. There you are, ma'am, now. They're all first class.
Ford had this tendency when he was operating in front of the Irish, I realise now, to be more Irish than they, and sometimes it could be quite embarrassing for the Irish viewer, for whose benefit he did these things.
I mean, there is truth in The Quiet Man as a film, but it's not the kind of truth we in Ireland would like to see. And we kind of condescend to it by saying, oh, The Quiet Man, the stereotype and all that, which it is. But it's actually, Ford looked upon himself as like the fella from Galway, you know, from Spiddle, who went over to America and was coming back giving everybody a bit of employment. And he was the big fella, I suppose, then. Can you just imagine what it was like? You know, in a very poverty-stricken culture, he's the big guy come back, and that's what John Wayne is. And John Wayne is coming away from the kind of violence of killing somebody in the ring to Ireland, and he gets caught up in this, you know, brawl thing. And it's kind of, I don't know, it's not too serious a film. It's kind of, but it's a good film. It wouldn't last this length if it wasn't.
Charge it!
I'll be going on home now. I'll have the supper ready for you.
アメリカで唯一アイルランドを題材にしたのがフォードでした。アイルランドにいたアメリカ人はアイルランド人は特殊な方向感覚を持っていると考えたようです。この旅人たちはシャノン空港でも見かけることができます。
Well, you stay here with the car in case someone comes along. I'll scout up the road a bit. Must lead somewhere.
Don't be too sure. Irish paths are whimsical, like the Irish character.
ハリウッドではアイルランド系アメリカ人の視点で描かれました。中でも人気のあったのが昔懐かしいミュージカルでした。
I landed here from Ireland just a week ago today, and as soon as I had settled in the town, I resolved to act entirely in a Yankee Doodle way. So I changed my name, but not my emerald gown. Then I strolled around to see the sights, assumed a Gibson air, but it really didn't seem to work somehow. You know, every Thomas, Dick, and Harry yelled, "There's Tipperary Mary." So that is why I'm asking of you now. Glory be to the old England! How can they tell that I'm Irish and come from the Emerald Isle? Can they tell it from me walk? Can they tell it from me talk? Or perhaps they spot me by my Irish smile?
My memory of seeing cinema or images that I associated with Irish cinema was really to do with, you know, watching films where people were doing very bad impressions of being Irish people and thinking that was funny, you know, thinking that was weird.
Not just women, but in terms of the way the North, for example, and Ireland in general was represented. Like the way people were mythologized, the way forms of rational thinking were taken away. The way the North, for example, was seen as in the grip of these dark mythological forces, and the way it was never seen that people created these problems and that people could solve them.
It's all right, Johnny. I'm here.
Is it far?
It's a long way, Johnny. But I'm coming with you. We're going away together.
with you, Terry, and dump you in a bog. Wouldn't it be better to go out like Matt? With your head high, and give your warm blood without fear in a great cause.
Blood. That's all ye want. That's all ye all want. You're like Ireland herself that keeps crying out always for blood and more blood. Wouldn't you think you'd be sick of it all? Wouldn't you think the whole wide earth would be vomiting blood from all the bright-eyed young fellas went out in their day?
Mother of mercy, when will we all get sense?
I'm not going to fight your war!
軽くなって美味しくなった。新しいハウスとんがりコーン。
その一瞬に何を見るのか。TOTOスーパー陸上95、世界のトップアスリートが記録に挑む。チケット好評発売中。
毎年4月21日は民放の日なんだって。
キャッチフレーズ募集中なんだって。
優秀賞1点30万円
なんだって。
お問い合わせは電話番号 0180-993377。
法隆寺国宝金堂正領院の愛人と四季獅子狩り門金が特別公開されます。拝観ご希望の方はご覧のところへお問い合わせください。
アイルランド映画第3期の始まりは1916年のことです。初の制作会社フィルムカンパニー・オブ・アイルランドが設立されました。この制作会社の代表作の一つは18世紀を舞台にした派閥の存在を否定する内容の作品で、設立4周年を記念して公開されました。ここでは現代劇やコメディも作られました。これら一連の作品にはアビー劇場の役者たちが出演していて、ここでは有名なコメディアンアーサー・シンクレアが借金をしてまで競馬にのめり込むろくでなしの父親を演じています。1920年代になると進歩的な映画人は独立の苦悩を描きました。戦争終結の数年後に作られたアイリッシュ・デスティニーは1921年に200人の IRA の捕虜がカラッハの収容所から脱走した有名なエピソードを描いた作品です。アイルランドでは同じテーマを扱った外国映画よりも低予算のザ・ドーンに人気が集中しました。
Well, I lived in Killarney all my life, and of course, very naturally, I selected it as the location for any film that I'd make or that I'd consider making. And then the natural scenery was there, the backgrounds were there, and everything we needed was there as far as they were available, as far as they were, I should say, useful to us.
終作「サムセイ・チャンス」は30年代の未公開作品です。リタ・フィッツ・サイモンが演じる中流階級の女性が家族を捨ててオーストラリアに立った夫に代わり娘の学費を稼ぐためロンドンで売春婦をするというストーリーです。原作者のマイケル・ファレルは30年代という保守的な時代に大胆な物語を残しました。
One, two, three, scatter!
think I know you, do I?
アイルランドのコメディはあまり知られていませんが、北アイルランドのプロデューサードノバーン・ペデルティは30年代に歌手のリチャード・ヘイワードを使ってコメディを撮っています。
Let's go on. We've got to.
Can I go?
You don't know where that road leads to.
Where?
I'm sure this is the right way. I'm sure.
This way. This road. This will take me where I must go.
50年代になると独自のフィクションやドキュメンタリーが多く作られるようになります。映画の発展にもかかわらず政府の援助は減る一方でした。政府はアードモアスタジオを援助しましたが、利益を得たのは外国人でした。
Ardmore has been here now since '58, and it has cost over $1.5 million of state funds. It hasn't yet produced an Irish film. It hasn't produced an Irish filmmaker in the sense of a producer or a director or a cameraman or an editor or an art director. It can't ever produce these because it is a hireable facility, and the people who can afford to hire it, who are the foreign film companies, aren't there to prove that Irishmen can make films. They will want to use their own people on it always.
1967年に首相のジャック・リンチが華麗なる悪の撮影現場に来た時、4年前に市民権を取っていたアイルランド系アメリカ人監督ジョン・ヒューストンは映画産業の可能性を試すように進言しました。そこで政府はヒューストンを頭に委員会を発足し、政府の援助を決めました。残念ながらこの決定はアイルランドの映画人には利益がなく、外国のプロデューサーがアイルランドでロケを行い、大金をかけてアイルランドの話を作るのに役立つだけでした。
I came here because we wanted a wild place, and I like wild places, and I think this west coast of Ireland is one of the most beautiful wild places I've ever seen.
70年代と80年代にはアイルランド人の手による新しい映画の試みがありました。彼らはアイルランドの文化や社会特有の習慣などを模索しましたが、決してヒットはしませんでした。それでもアイルランドの映画史に重要な一歩を記しました。
There was more wealth, there was less immigration. We simply had choices that people, our predecessors, didn't have. And we had this, it wasn't an easy choice. In other words, there wasn't a lot of finance available to make film, but there was at least the possibility of looking at your own society.
Camera, lights, action!
Do you mind? All right, everybody, make yourselves comfortable. That's it. And we will all enjoy the first sight of our grand new ethnic Gaelic Technicolor epic. Here we go. Oh, kill the lights.
The three courses of Ireland: England, religion, and the dream.
We decided very early on that it couldn't actually be made in a kind of a three-act form that most fictional films about the north of Ireland were made in at that time. Like there was either panorama documentaries or else there were Wednesday plays, like sort of humanist visions of stoic people getting through the problems in the north of Ireland. Different kinds of things we wanted to talk about couldn't fit easily within a three-act drama. So that really is why Maeve is in the form it's in.
The first film I made was Angel, which was about set in the north of Ireland, and it was about political murders, and it was about a particular perspective on the whole issue of violence in the north of Ireland.
Who the fuck is she?
Doesn't matter who she is. Yeah.
roundly attacked for his interpretations of the North. But I don't feel as strongly about it as maybe a lot of people down here feel about his filmmaking, because I think that he maybe was only reflecting quite a commonly held point of view anyway when he talked about, he's talked in interviews about the North having, the problems in the North being rooted in a sort of psychic violence, rather than looking at other rational explanations for why people behave the way they do.
Christ.
I think I concentrated on developing the story of one young girl, but we were always very clear that she was going to be set in the context of a town which was experiencing the war. Her boyfriend was somebody who got involved in the fringes of republicanism and ended up in prison. Those were all elements which were brought into it and were clearly identified at the beginning as part of the story.
Wait, I think they're going now.
So that, you know, the fabric of everyday life for young people in the North was clearly illustrated.
I suppose it's different in the sense that it's not about the Troubles and not about anything associated with the Troubles, but it is about the community, the two communities living side by side. It's a period piece, so it's easier to talk about sectarianism without the influence of the Troubles colouring it.
Like the buttons flying off the boy's tunic that morning.
Do you want to try both, Donald, or do you...
No.
No, you just want to do the one?
Yeah, because there's a big jump there.
Okay, fine. When all of these films are shown, that the amount of people that want to go and see them or are really enthusiastic about them is always incredible. It's even shocking to me.
The way they burst out in all directions was like...
And we forget that there is this hunger out there to see mirror images of ourselves, or whatever you want to call it. It's surprising, but at the same time, it's more surprising that we haven't seen this for so many years.
The way they burst out in all directions was like...
I wanted to show a terrible bleakness, you know, and I didn't want it just to apply to the people in the setting where it was made in Connemara. I think I wanted to say that we are a very callous people, or people are very callous.
You know not basta. 生まれたままの君が好きだよ。
私は増毛してくれた方が好き。
突然ですが9月はアートネイチャー頭髪健康月間です。確かなヘアドッグで頭髪の健康をご相談ください。
頭髪診断でハッピーラッキーゴールイン。アートネイチャー頭髪健康月間。
タバコや風邪で喉の具合が悪い時、フィニッシュはその場で手当てができます。いいですか？薬が患部にピタッピタッと当たりますから、喉の腫れと痛みが取れて気持ちよく声が出てきます。フィニッシュ講話。
スープスパしようか。
しよう。
スープスパ。
今の2人に新しいスープで食べるハウススープスパゲッティ。その一瞬に何を見るのか。TOTOスーパー陸上95、世界のトップアスリートが記録に挑む。チケット好評発売中。
over the decades, many areas of Irish society hadn't been reflected on film. And we were trying to bring in, from the margins, those different stories that hadn't been told, and to put those stories on screen for the first time.
It's almost like a song or a ballad. You know, the narrative is very, very simple. And the kind of things that happen I was interested in the kind of stories that could happen inside a single image. Like the image at the beginning where the women stand up in the cart. And also it aims to show that she wasn't this sideline figure in the Romeo and Juliet story that was Robert Emmet and Sarah Curran, that she was a politicised woman.
Go on. Go on.
これらの映画は政府の援助を求めて働きかけた何十年間の集大成だと言えます。81年に設定されたアイリッシュフィルムボード管理下の制作資金と87年からの映画制作に対する免税で映画の存続が約束されました。現在の映画制作の環境はベストの状況です。アイルランドと外国の大作映画を援助しながらも小さな企画の映画を作ることも可能です。1990年にはジム・シェリダンの「マイ・レフト・フット」で初のオスカーを獲得。世界に認められることになります。
The late hours of last night to the small hours of early morning, fans, friends, supporters and the other members of the cast of the Irish film My Left Foot had gathered in Ardmore Studios in anticipation of Oscar himself coming to Ireland. They didn't have to wait too long.
The Oscar goes to Brenda Fricker in My Left Foot.
A funny thing about film is that far from it being like a very kind of sophisticated medium, I think it's the opposite. I think it returns you much more to the original dramatic structures.
It was Mummy, wasn't it? And now she's gone home. The travellers, cowboys or Indians, Papa?
There's a bit of a traveller in everybody, Tito. Very few of us know where we're going.
People who are operating an institute at this point don't have a distinctive voice. I think there are many distinctive voices within that. So I don't think we're necessarily going to have a kind of a movement that we can look back on in years to time and in years to come and find that it is particularly distinctive or particularly similar. I think that there are key issues in terms of new Irish cinema and in terms of how that's going to develop, and there are a range of policies that have been put in place which have been incredibly helpful and incredibly useful, but there is the old problem of finding the rest of the money.
The ground was solid and as hard as stone underneath your feet. It was the kind of cold that wraps around you like a hand.
In terms of Paddy's approach to Elsa, I think that when he was
conceiving and shooting the film, his inspiration and his reference points were very much the Eastern European filmmakers, contemporary Eastern European filmmakers. We knew that we had a European art house movie on our hands. It certainly wasn't anything that owed a debt to any Irish cinema, although Paddy is a big fan of Neil Jordan, so I'm sure some of his influences have crept into the film.
See? I had a plan.
Good one.
Brilliant.
Coming from such a literary culture as we do in Ireland, where everything seems to have been written about endlessly, but 25 different times, to be able to make a movie was like a whole new language, you know, to me.
Keep going. You're out, yeah? Now just send the horse forward and try and get it to rear.
I gradually came to find actually that it's an international thing, filmmaking, you know. And the more films I've made, the more I realised that it's actually, its nationality is important in a personal kind of way, you know, in kind of in a way of the specific stimulus of a particular movie. But the way the industry is structured now, it's mainly dominated by America, you know.
Jack, what are you doing?
A little champagne to us, to Ireland, your homeland, Loch Ness Monster, guys in skirts.
That's Scotland, Jack.
I knew that. I knew that.
Well, I think every person who makes films now, unless they make very small, independent films, they have to deal with Hollywood in some way or other.
590. No, a parapsychologist. Yeah, look up on that line.
Every filmmaker who works internationally is a filmmaker who happens to be Irish, French, you know, Chinese, Hong Kong or whatever, you know, because it's become this huge international thing, you know.
I suppose I'm a director who happens to be Irish, but, you know, a lot of the time we ask all this question, Irish, 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 and it's a mantra of, to me, lack of self-possession and lack of self-centeredness, you know. It's kind of like we're always trying to figure out who we are. You know, we're always trying to figure out our identity, because somewhere really deep down where we feel maybe we don't have one.
18, take 1A, camera marker. Watching.
In the Name of the Father wasn't like a protest film. It was just a film holding up a mirror saying, look, you're old-fashioned. Get over it, you know. Evolve. Realise you made a mistake. You can say you made a mistake. Because when you've been on top of the world, you actually can't say you make a mistake or the whole thing comes crumbling down.
Okay, cut!
Jesus, suffering Christ.
He's a brown. He's a brown, all right. Christy's a brown. Coat.
Where are you going, Paddy?
What do you think? This man deserves a jar.
にボリューム。ほら違うでしょ。あなたの場合はおしゃれだ。増やす、飾る、彩る、加える、髪型変身自由自在。しかも手軽に自宅でワンタッチ。今すぐお電話ください。フリーダイヤル 0120850505。
Revlon Charm Touch。
俺か。さらにコシ、さらにコク。新しい北のラーメン屋さん。うまいっしょ。
開店です。
その一瞬に何を見るのか。TOTOスーパー陸上95、世界のトップアスリートが記録に挑む。チケット好評発売中。
ラザニアをはじめ、ハウスのディッシュアップにナチュラルチーズがたっぷり入っちゃいました。ナチュラルチーズが入ったよ、ハウスのディッシュアップ新登場。
Anything that I like, in other words, if the script, it doesn't have to be about Ireland, but it seems to be that that's the subject I know most about, you know, and feel easier here. So obviously we'll kind of drift to it. But this picture, Frankie Starlet, was written by an American, and the book was an American novel, you know. And it wasn't, the story could be set anywhere. New Orleans, it was going to be set in Paris at one stage, it was going to be set in London, then it was set in Cork. And then, of course, it was filmed in Dublin.
You're fine.
That's
it.
That's a wrap.
Thank you.
And for Corbin.
It's ridiculous that in four and a half, whatever it was, 1990, 4 years, that My Left Foot cost $2.5 million or 1.7 million pounds. This film has cost over $7 million. And when you get into that range of expenditure, you cannot recoup it from here. So you have to kind of have an eye to the marketplace.
It was more, I suppose, for me, in truth, that the films were an extension of working in the theatre. You know, I suppose just the truth of the matter is what got me into films was money. You know, I was broke in New York. I'd done theatre forever and ever. And I had to kind of find some way out of just being totally poverty-stricken. Now, that was one side of it. And the other was that I always wanted to do, you know, cinema. I don't know, just make films about stuff, you know. I suppose if, you know, everybody denies all the things that are the actual truth, I think. You know, they all say, well, I wanted to prove this, that, or the other about Ireland or whatever. And, you know, I wanted all the vain things, you know. I wanted to make more money, and I wanted to be, you know, you can make a film, your name's up there, and you think, well, I've made one film, and now I can retire, you know. You know what I mean? You'll be remembered or something. All those are the actual reasons people do it, not for glorious reasons, I think.
There's no fucking bullshit. It sticks its neck out and sits it straight from the heart. Sure, there's lots of music you can get off on, but soul is more than that. It takes you somewhere else. It grabs you by the balls and lifts you above the shite.
Said to the man at the railroad station, I want a ticket just for one. He said, well, if you insist, but where you want to go, man? Destination anywhere, east or west, I don't care. You see, my baby don't love me no more.
I recall getting the morning off work and going in to see it in the Savoy Cinema, and after about 25 minutes really beginning to enjoy myself, I was very happy with it. I think it's a fuller film than the book. If you know, the book is a small, slim book, and it's a very loud and a brash, and anyway, 2 hours, quite a long film, I suppose. But I was very happy with it. Now and again, I think an outsider's view of Ireland crept in. There's a scene which a lot of people like, the young guy going to confession, and the priest actually, it turns out, has a greater knowledge of soul music than he does.
Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It's been a month since my last confession. I've been with this band,
And there's been a lot of cursing and blasphemy. And I've been neglecting my exams. And there's these 3 girls with the band. I've had lustful thoughts about all of them. And when I studied, I used to sing hymns. Now I'm always humming When a Man Loves a Woman by Marvin Gaye.
Percy Sledge.
Huh?
It was Percy Sledge did that particular song. I have the album.
Oh.
And while it's the punchline is quite funny, it just struck a bad note with me for the simple reason that that boy wouldn't have gone to confession. I know, I come from here, and that guy would not have gone to confession, and that annoyed me slightly. And there were little patches that annoyed me a bit, but only tiny. It would be churlish of me to give out about them too much, because overall I was very, very happy with it.
I think it's a much tougher game than people think. I think it's, and not tough in the sense of that you have to be a tough guy, but you have to be smart.
I've been very lucky. I think from the writer's point of view, if you want to see your work eventually end up on the screen, more or less, or whatever, as you hear it in your head and perhaps see it in your head, really, the smaller the project in many ways, the better. It means that you'll never retire to Lake Como, or if you do, you'll have a tent. But it also means that you can withstand a lot of the pressures, the pressures that come with a big budget, or the pressures won't be there at all.
It just depends on how much you want to compromise, I suppose. The thing about Korea is that it's cost less than £500,000 to make. So I didn't have to compromise that much. I mean, there were enough pressures to try and get the film made within 30 days. And that was enough of a compromise, thank you very much.
Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and God in Jesus' name, and we shall do one without end. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as
The choice is as to whether we become the consumer of images in a passive culture, or whether we will be allowed to be the makers of images in an active culture in a democratic society. There is no way of evading that fundamental policy choice internationally. And there is a way out. It's not achieved, I think myself, by simple exclusions, but by building up a base of productivity in images and accepting one great and exciting fact, that it is in the interstices between cultures that some of the most exciting things happen. But you cannot get to that point of pluralism and international tolerance if you have first been dominated so completely that you have no space in the marketplace.
We need film as part of the mechanism of keeping our society healthy. It's not some kind of side issue.
If there is to be any kind of healthy cinema at all, you need tiny movies, and you need expensive movies. You know, you need people who work in a big popular style, and people who work just totally out of their own aesthetic and instincts, you know.
I think there will be the odd lighthouse where somebody gets a film through that is, you know, strong and independent, in inverted commas, and says something real about our own situation.
I'm quite optimistic about it. I hope that's the case. I still think we need a hell of a lot more resources, and we do need the support of a continuing government policy to help filmmakers.
And I think Irish cinema being emerging at this kind of late stage, it's got a it's in a very peculiar position, you know, because what happens to young filmmakers now if they're successful is they're propelled straight into the limelight, you know. And they're kind of pushed straight into this, basically what's a world distribution system, really, which has never been there before. And it's kind of nerve-wracking time, but it's, for people who want to grab it, it's quite exciting, you know.
Bye. Safe home, dear.
See you next week.
I dream of New Zealand.
明日の映画誕生100年はピアノレッスンジュラシック・パークの俳優サム・ニールが
ニュージーランド映画の歴史を探求します。お楽しみに。